I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Chris Harris. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
Man, I am fantastic. I gotta tell you, I gotta respect the hustle, man, because I see you're booking these things. What do you have, over 1,000 recordings?
Yes, I did. I got 1,000.
That's fantastic.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we're up to we did 1,201 for
That's awesome. That's awesome.
International Podcasting Day on the 30th of September 2017. So it's been fascinating. But Chris, you're a podcaster, and you understand the value of what we do, right? And everything that comes
totally.
into it. Tell me, what part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to do is, there's something you were sharing on your podcast that was pretty close to your heart in terms of what's going on in Puerto Rico at this particular time. So could you share the way, because there are people that want to help, but I think they're concerned how they can help. So could you share what you're doing there with your wife?
Yeah, and I can share that. So we're not recording right now, right?
We are. Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we were recording. Yeah. So my wife and I created a resource. If anyone goes to my website, chrismichaelharris.com/PR, like Puerto Rico, we've created a basic resource page for anybody that wants to learn how they can contribute, because I think a lot of people they want to help, but they've heard stories about things like money may not be allocated in certain ways that they think it is, or they don't know who they're actually helping. So what we've done is we've created a resource for people that we vetted, places they can donate, or other ways they can take advantage of, just things supplies that people need and stuff like that. Congressmen and people they can actually reach out to say, hey, send Puerto Rico help and assistance and so on and so forth. So that's something that we've really been pushing for, because, we talked about this a lot, but her family's down there, and we went 5 days, didn't hear a word from them. And everything we've heard from people on the island is that it is much worse than what we've seen on the news. So we are very aggressively trying to help in whatever way we possibly can to the island.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I speak masses to who you are, right? Because I get to jump in, listen to so many podcasts, because I'm focusing on podcasters in this particular time, and just to feel the beat of the podcaster. But it just speaks masses, because you dropped your sponsors and you're doing this, right? And I mean, just hats off to what you and your wife are doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So tell us about your podcast, Chris, and what you do there.
Man, it's kind of funny how things kind of came to fruition, because I was having all these really high-level conversations, because first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur. I've had several businesses. My first business straight out of college, we launched from nothing, literally from my college apartment, to a $1.2 million company in 36 months. I mean, things just took off, which is totally unexpected. So, but I was having all these really high-level conversations about entrepreneurship. I always say this, but entrepreneurship is not a career, it's a lifestyle. And so I was having all these incredible conversations with people, and then I just one day just came to this realization, why am I not recording these conversations? Because it could be really valuable to someone else that's just starting out on that path. And so from that point forward, within 2 weeks, we were trending. We were top 5 worldwide under business, health, and education, and new and noteworthy. We parlayed that into some big guests like the Damon Johns of the world, several of the folks on Shark Tank, several New York Times bestselling authors, Jeffrey Hazlett, who's a primetime TV host. And so we were just kind of off and running. So it really is a passion project. There's nothing more gratifying to me than to have someone email me and say, Chris, this really helped me, or I was really struggling and your message in this particular episode really got me through that, or whatever. So it really is a passion project that just kind of evolved into something more than I ever really anticipated, truth be told.
Amazing. And for those listening, that podcast is Entrepreneur Hour, right, with Chris Michael Harris. Do check that out.
Thank you, because evidently I can't plug my own show. So thank you.
It happens. It happens. But who did you learn the skill of sharing from? Because you're doing this and you're having the conversations as you indicated, and then the light goes off because you see that this can benefit someone else. So who did you learn that skill from, that skill of sharing?
I think you learn, I don't think it was any one particular person. I think you learn, at least with entrepreneurship and probably from many walks of life, that it's you find a tribe and then you give back. You learn from the people that have gone through what you're now going through, the people that have come before you, and then you give back to those that are coming after you. And so I would say like the major influencers for me, like the Tony Robbins, the Gary Vaynerchuk's, the Tim Ferriss's, the Lewis Howes, some of those guys, more of like the digital influencers that I've followed. But a lot of those folks, and obviously you have some of your more like intimate in person, like I've got my mentors, my business coaches and stuff like that. But, you know, I would say as a whole to really plug into that community, and whatever community that really is what I've learned for. And then in terms of sharing that, it's like this, someone gave their time to me. I would be selfish not to give that back to someone else. And that's largely what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, so much of entrepreneurship is giving at heart, right?
Oh, totally.
It's just giving. It's full circle. I think entrepreneurs understand that pretty quickly.
Well, they don't teach you this in school. Like the only way you do learn it is through experience or from others that have come before you, you know, I mean, that have done it before.
Well, with giving comes the challenge of hurt, right? Like it's part and parcel of the entire process. Why will you continue to repeat the skill in the midst of that?
In terms of giving?
Yeah, let's do giving.
Well, so I think also there's a large part of it too. And it's one thing to just be generous with your time and your resources, but also I think you learn things in a little bit different way when you teach it to someone else, when you share that, because you kind of gain that insight. But there's one thing that I've learned, and I mentioned Tony Robbins, so I'll cite him again. He talks about the human experience in terms of like how you live a fulfilling life. And one of the things he said is that it's progress and service to others. And notice the second part of that, of those two things, is service to others. So I think you really don't feel like you're living a fulfilled life. There's always a void missing. So like if I'm just progressing my own means, if my own, you know, career path, my own life path, and I'm not giving back to other people, there always feels like there's that burden or that void there, this like burden I'm carrying of not doing something that I should be doing. And so I think a large part of it, you know, it's funny how we're kind of our DNA is encoded for us to have that innate desire to need to give back to others. So truth be told, man, I think largely it is more of a benefit to me in a lot of ways than I think it is to the folks that I'm actually helping.
Well, Chris, tell me one thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
So this is actually a great question. I would say persist, because there have been a lot of challenges in the last 3 years of my life. I had a major health scare. I had one of my businesses, just everything was going perfectly. And then out of the clear blue sky, we just got hit. I mean, by like a freight train. It was brutal. And so I think the one thing that I learned is that just getting to what you perceive as a mountaintop is not the end of the journey. And a lot of people think like, oh, this person's made it now. And truth be told, like when you have more, there's just more to lose. And so no matter where you are, whether you're at the beginning of your journey or you've reached a certain level of success, or whatever the case may be, the people that make it are the people that continue to find a way to pick themselves back up. The guy who wins is the guy who just learns to get back up one more time that he got knocked down. And so into a large degree, you've got to be your own Wolverine, like from the X-Men, you know, like you've got to find a way to heal and to recover and to get back up and to keep on keeping on. And so I would say that's something that I've learned is that, you know, when the chips are down, you just got to dig deeper.
Yeah, that mindset is scary. Like there are people listening that have the 9 to 5 that are so comfortable in that life, right? I mean, how does it make you feel being in that life?
Where I don't have that security blanket?
Where you're Wolverine, like Wolverine goes into something, right? Let's unwrap that. So Wolverine goes into a battle, and it's he usually wins because he has the ability to heal so quickly, right? But I think an imagery that gets left out, or a feeling, right, is the pain he has to endure in between that process. So you understanding that is the process and the pain that goes with it, how does it make you feel?
You know, my wife said something to me the other day that really resonated with me. So I'll repeat it for the audience and for you know, the folks listening. But she said there's purpose in the pain. And so I think you come to learn that, like, if things stay cushy, if things are just comfortable, that you don't grow. There's no need to grow, you know, but when you really are pushed back against a corner and you're going through some really, you know, they call them growing pains, not growing pleasures for a reason. And it's because in those moments, and so I always look at it that way, like when you're struggling or when you have something that is painful to you, just know that it is whatever it is, like whatever it is you believe in, you know, a higher power, if you believe in that, intelligent design, whatever. If you believe in that higher power, know that there's a purpose behind that. You're not just experiencing pain just for the sake of experiencing pain. Something is pushing you to be more than what you are, to evolve into something greater than you currently are. And so I think that kind of puts things into perspective where you start looking at the pain in an inherently different way. It's a complete paradigm shift where you're looking at saying, you know what, this is an honor now that I'm going through this because I'm going through something that maybe someone else couldn't go through. And it's for a reason because there is some kind of a bigger purpose for me maybe in life. that I'm supposed to be fulfilling some kind of destiny or fate for my own
And
life.
then it comes full circle around, because now you're the person that is speaking to the next upcoming pain bearer, if you would, and helping them to evade some of the pain, right? So now it comes full circle around again, right? There's a legacy.
Yeah.
A legacy
Yeah.
model there.
Oh man. Yeah. And there's some stories out there, people that have gone through just some incredible, painful journeys. And so, you know, when you recognize that, like, I don't know a single like crazy successful person that hasn't just been through hell and back. Like, honestly, I don't know of a single person that hasn't gone through something that just, it's almost like a rite of passage to really achieve like some form of influence or success in your life, is that you have to go through something just really painful. So if you look at it that way, you know.
Boom. Amazing audience. We are live right now with Chris Michael Harris. You could definitely check him out. Check out his podcast, Entrepreneur Hour. My apologies. Hey, Chris, let's switch gears for a moment. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Chris, what is your earliest childhood memory?
You know, you're honestly not going to believe me when I tell you this, but I was 2 years old, which is crazy to remember something from 2 years old, right? Like, I feel like we don't have memory, so we're like 4 or 5, I don't know. But anyway, so I remember walking into the hospital room when my mom was in labor with my brother, which is crazy, right? Like, who remembers that at 2 years old? But anyway, that was my earliest memory. And I remember repeating that to my parents at one point, you know, like my earlier years, like 6, 7, or 8, I repeated that. And my mom like was just astounded that I actually remembered any of that. And I was telling them what happened. I don't think they believed me. And I was giving them details like, wow, he really does remember this. So yeah, that was my earliest memory.
Your walk. So is it he's born and how did you walk into the room?
So we had pulled up to the hospital, and I remember riding in the car, and we had dropped her off, and then we went and parked the car and came up. And then when we walked in the room, so we thought there'd be more time, evidently, and there wasn't. Like, my mom like immediately like went into labor or what. I don't know how this stuff works. I apologize. So, but evidently the process was a little bit more expeditious than we anticipated. So they were like, you got to get out. Like, you can't be in here, because we were thinking we had time, I guess. So I remember walking in, and I just remember like she screamed, and then they had to pull us out, and the nurse took me and went to like the little whatever. And like, I remember like little bits and pieces of that. So it's quite bizarre, I know, to actually remember that at such a young age.
It's cool. It's cool. So why do you think this memory is so clear?
Well, I don't know. I think that it's kind of an interesting thing to have as your first memory, because, you know, it's such a beautiful thing for life to come into the world. And so, especially when it's, you know, obviously my brother, my own flesh and blood come into the world. And so I think it's quite fascinating. I think it's pretty cool first memory, to be honest. It could be something like really meaningless. Like, oh, I remember my first chocolate chip cookie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at least it's something that's meaningful, you know?
Yeah. Well, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Do it.
I love the fact that you touched on, and even you shared what your wife shared about the pain in the process, right? And the growing pains. Like, you saw real life, the truth of growing pains and what it can create, right? What it can create. And what better than the creation of another human, right? So,
very, very perceptive, my friend.
Pretty amazing. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Man, honestly, I've been thinking about this since I read that you were going to propose this question to me. And the only thing that I can think at 12 would have had to have been I was really big into like hip hop and all that. And so I was a huge Eminem fan. And I think the Slim Shady LP had just come out, which I highly do not recommend for anyone under the age of like 18 years old. But I think the Slim Shady LP had just come out. So like, you know, the Hi, My Name Is Slim Shady. I'm pretty sure that was the first. That was probably my favorite song at the time, and because I had the hair dyed blonde and everything. Like, I was truly like a Slim Shady one.
Sweet. Well, you know, it all connects, right? The name of the song. I'm not sure if you're a slim guy, but just the concept of the confidence required to be in the entrepreneurial space, right? You definitely you do that, don't you?
Definitely the rebelliousness. Yes. Definitely the rebelliousness. Yeah.
Big R, capital R. All right, Chris, this is so much fun. You would not believe, but we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. Chris, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
You know, I would love to say that's one individual person, but honestly, I think a large part of what I do as far as my personal brand is concerned. Obviously, I have other business endeavors that don't necessarily are as wide reaching, but man, honestly, anybody that's out there that resonates with anything that I say, it truthfully is just, I want to reach anybody. If I reach one person out there in this particular podcast recording, that's a huge win for me. Like, that's why I do what I do on a Friday night at 10 o'clock, why I'm talking to you. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a single person. It's just an ideal that there's someone out there in my mind every single time I record anything, anytime someone interviews me, anytime I do a YouTube video, that there's even one single person that has a slight impact on their life. That's why I do it. So and that's who I'm trying to pass that along to. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a single individual person, but I would say it's just every time I record something, I have that person in mind.
Now, you spoke of your wife, so you are married. Do you have children?
We do not.
Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes, primarily entrepreneurs. I've had to adopt new friends since I became an entrepreneur. But yes, very, very close inner circle of entrepreneurial friends.
Yeah, that's an entire 12-minute conversation right there. Right?
When you want to interview me, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this in 12 minutes. But let's let it go.
It's cool. Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
Weekends maybe with sports, like football season. But other than that, no.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8?
We live in a digital world, brother. Of course, it's more than 8 at this point. Yeah, definitely. Primarily, computer screens and stuff like that.
Yeah. Chris, after having 1,001 conversations in 3 months in 2016, I came up with a workbook that's called Yours, Your Own Unique Real Self. And connected to that acronym is Your Own Unique Real Stance, Your Own Unique Real Statement. If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, something that represents Chris Michael Harris, what would you say that is?
So right now, and I'm probably going to trademark this thing, because one of my initial experiences with entrepreneurship was that the importance of being financially at least in a decent place, because if you're not, it's really, really hard to survive startup growth. So I always say the dream dies when the bank dries. And so that's something like I'm really going to trademark, because a lot of people jump into entrepreneurial ventures and they have no idea they're going to pay for stuff. And it really puts them in a bad spot, and their dream becomes their nightmare.
Yeah. I love it. The dream dies when the bank dries. Ooh, love it. Chris, this is a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Yeah, so what we've done is I put together some just basic stuff about a startup. So if anybody's listening, it's like, hey, you know what? I'd love to do a startup business. We put together some just basic resources, just some tips and pointers and stuff like that. So if you go to chrismichaelharris.com, which is my website, / and we did 12MC, like 12-minute convo, like your name of your podcast, they can get that free resource.
Love it. So I'm like thinking Michael Harris, Chris, the MC works there as well, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Chris, this was a great pleasure. Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.